Florida is recognized for 5 minutes. Then we'll move to the gentlewoman from Georgia, Ms. McBath, for 5 minutes.
Thank you so much, Chairwoman. Thank you, each and every one of you, for being with us today. And Ms. Soto, I just can't thank you enough for sharing your story. And I'm so sorry that you have been saddled with all of these fees, and this has become so problematic for you. But I really appreciate you sharing your story with us today. And Professor Harris, as Ms. Soto experience just shows us today, often the person who is paying the fees or the fine is often not the person who actually has done anything wrong. So Professor Harris, I just want to ask you, you co-authored a study that looked at the fine practices in 8 states, and including Georgia, which is the state that I represent. And you found that not only was there variation across the United States and to how these fees were applied, these fines were applied, but you also found that there was variation within each and every state. So in your view, were these variations consistent with that principle that our justice system should treat similar cases in the same way?
I mean, I think that we all have this broader notion that justice should be fair. And what does fair look like? It should be consistent, and there should be policies and practices that guide how decisions are made. And we found across our 8 states that there is so much variability within a courthouse, within a city, within a county, within a state across the United States. One example that we haven't talked yet about is that many jurisdictions impose mandatory fines and fees. So even if there's an ability to pay assessment at the front end, so people are impoverished, then judges have the discretion not to impose discretionary fines and fees. In Washington state, people are sentenced a mandatory $500, regardless of ability to pay. So $500 per felony conviction. So there's a lot of variability, and even ability to pay assessments won't apply to some practices. So it's important that we have this broader conversation about what is accountability, what is the point of punishment that the last person raised. If accountability means being able to meet some bar and standard, fulfill that punishment, and then move forward with your life, then we need to really assess fines and fees, because the vast majority of individuals who face the criminal legal system do not have the ability to be held accountable, even though that they want to. One consistent factor across all of our states and interviews is people wanted to, who have been convicted, they wanted to serve their time
Thank you very much. I want to move on. Ms. Soto, did you feel that you or your son were really giving clear information about how much he was going to be fined for, and how to avoid the late fees or the harmful consequences that you've experienced? And then after she gives that answer, I would love for you, Professor Harris, to kind of elaborate on that.
Yes, I felt that my son and I were clear that we were poor, that we couldn't pay these fines. I was also offering to pay to clean the courthouse or doing some community service hours with him, because we did not have the money. But it seems that the system is set not to listen to communities of color. I feel that we get punished more because of our color, because of the language barrier. It was no language justice in here. I felt that my son and I were isolated through the system, and we were not given a chance to even speak about, how much they knew how much money I was making. So I think it's a great idea if they can impose those fees based on your income and not put a lot more pressure on us. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And so, Professor Harris, can you elaborate on that for me, please, very quickly?
Sure. Again, that was one consistent finding across all of our 8 states is uncertainty, lack of knowledge, lack of what am I being billed for? Why does it increase each month? Where do I go to pay? How do I pay if I have multiple cases in different municipalities? There was a clear lack of understanding of this process of, why am I paying because I already was in prison for several years? Why am I paying because I'm on probation? So a lot of questions that were unanswered by local courthouse clerks, and lack of access to judges to ask those questions, or attorneys for that matter.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Woog, some states have stopped the suspension of driver's licenses for those who have not actually paid a fee. Based on your work with clients, what effects does this have both for the client, their family, and their community?
I mean, the effects are absolutely devastating. In Texas, a driver's license is a practical necessity for people to obtain childcare, to go to work, to provide for basic necessities for their families. And what we see for people who have their driver's licenses suspended is either they pull back entirely. It's very isolating for themselves and for their families, and can exacerbate existing mental and physical health issues, or they risk driving illegally, which then exposes them to warrants, jail time, family separation. And so that stress and that fear is internalized regardless of how someone deals with that situation, and is absolutely toxic for individuals, their families, and their communities.
Thank you so much, and I yield back my time.